Hello and welcome to part 3 of Module 3 of Summerhill Online Academy's IELTS Writing Preparation course. In this section, we will continue to talk about IELTS Writing Task 2, the essay. However, in this section, we'll basically put everything together in the sense that we're going to talk about the essential keys to success to gain at least a Band 7 and above. So we're going to take a look at the essential keys for success to extend our to gain at least a Band 7 in IELTS Writing Task 2, and even push beyond writing Band 7 into Band 8. So we're going to take a look at the essential keys to success for Band 7 and above in IELTS Writing Task 2. And we have, in fact, actually discussed 2 of these keys to success already in the 2 previous sections of this Module 3. And first of all, in Module 1, we talked about that it's important to answer every part of the question. So in essence, IELTS Writing Task 2 questions may be a little bit tricky. For example, if the question asks us to outweigh the advantages over the disadvantages of a particular issue, if we are to weigh the advantages and disadvantages properly, we do need to talk about both the advantages and the disadvantages of that particular issue. Similarly, if the question asks us to talk about the advantages and disadvantages, or it asks us to discuss both views regarding a particular issue, we must be careful to always talk about both views and talk both about the causes and the solutions, or causes and effects, or basically answer every part of the question that we have. And of course, it's also important to answer every part of the question equally. So we need to present a balanced response. So again, we need to talk about causes and effects equally, advantages and disadvantages equally. We don't want to spend more time talking about advantages or disadvantages, or more time talking about causes and effects. We need to present a balanced response. So we've already mentioned this in part 1 and 2 of Module 3. However, in order to extend beyond an Band 7 in task achievement, we can take a look back at our writing band descriptors, the public versions, of course. And when we take a look at task response, we can see, yes, that for Band 7, we are addressing all parts of the task equally, but we are still stuck at a Band 7 score if we have a tendency to overgeneralize. And what this really means when we're thinking about avoiding generalizations or overgeneralizations, first of all, we need to be aware that when we're writing this, we're not going to be including any statistics or citations or any data to support ideas. And so what we're essentially doing is we're supporting our position through our experience and our general knowledge of what we know about the world and what we know about these issues. This means that we want to avoid a fatalistic or absolute tone, and instead use the language of probability or academic tone. And basically, academic tone uses a language of probability instead of talking about absolutes. And our success in order to fulfill that requirement is our proper use of and useful use of some modals that show probability, such as might, could, or may. Just to show an example of academic tone, let's say we can say that Canadians drink a lot of coffee, right? And even though this sentence might be correct, there's a lot of statistics out there that show that Canadians do drink a lot of coffee. This tone, however, is not particularly academic. Here we have a global description of Canadians drinking a lot of coffee, but of course we know that not all Canadians drink a lot of coffee. So if we were to say most Canadians drink a lot of coffee, or even many Canadians drink a lot of coffee, That would actually sound more academic because we're avoiding that global or absolute tone, which is not academic. Another example, reducing the price of fresh vegetables will decrease obesity. Once again, this sentence sounds very direct, but also very absolute. Reducing the price of vegetables will decrease obesity. This is a very absolute, fatalistic tone. However, if we were to rewrite this sentence and say reducing the prices on fresh vegetables might reduce obesity, here we're using the language of probability. And again, we can say is likely, is very certain. There's a very huge chance that reducing the prices of fresh vegetables might reduce obesity. Again, we're being a little bit softer here. We're not talking in terms of absolutes. We're using a more academic tone by signaling probability. Just one more example. If we close the sports facility, we will not be able to play sports. Versus closing the sports facility might have a negative impact on the community's ability to play sports. Definitely the second sentence sounds a lot more academic because it really does avoid those overgeneralizations. So for IELTS, those overgeneralizations are basically produced by this absolute tone, where there is no probability or even capacity for us as a writer to make an error or be mistaken in any way. So in essence, we want to be able to avoid generalizations, and this is an aspect of tone. So being able to use those modals correctly is an essential aspect for writing task. For writing task 2. Now, another important key is to use paragraphing. So if we take a look at the coherence and cohesion section of our band descriptors, we can see that if we write paragraphs, we'll get a minimum of band 7. But again, our descriptors tell us that uses paragraphing, but not always logically. So it gives us a clue that we cannot get a band 7 until we have a clear paragraph with a clear and central topic. So basically, paragraphing is not the same as simply dividing our information into blocks of writing. For example, if we have these two blocks of writing, we can see that the first group of sentences is about hamsters, and the second group of sentences is also about hamsters. So both groups of sentences have the same topic. But the first paragraph simply describes, or this first group of sentences simply describes random facts and information about hamsters. But the second group of sentences has a clear topic sentence. Here it says hamsters are popular pets. And the rest of the sentences show examples of how or why hamsters are popular pets. It shows how or why the topic sentence is true. So a basic paragraph needs to have a topic sentence, a clear topic, a clear idea or position, and then the rest of the sentences need to show how or why the topic sentence is true. So basically, we do need a clear topic sentence within each body paragraph, and all the sentences need to support the topic sentences. So as an example, if we take a look at the first group of sentences, my mother is a doctor, she's 40 years old, she's a kind mother, her hobby is watching television, drinking coffee, her car is blue and white, she does yoga at Hyde Park on the weekends. Here we have many sentences about my mother and how she is a doctor. We have facts about how old she is. We know what car she drives. We know the hobbies that she enjoys doing. But there is no clear topic sentence. There is no big idea. A paragraph is more than just a group of sentences about the same topic. It's a group of sentences that proves a central idea. In the second group of sentences, we have My wife is very caring. Every morning she makes me breakfast. She always takes care of me when I am sick. When I'm stressed with work, she makes me special luncheons and snacks. Even though she's busy, she finds time to spend with me. Here we have a clear topic sentence. My wife is very caring. And all the supporting sentences show examples of this caring relationship. All the sentences show how or why my wife is caring. Take a look at the third group of sentences. My teacher is scary. He has long, sharp teeth and red eyes. His voice sounds like a gorilla's cry. His face is handsome and clean. My teacher is very good at doing math problems. Well, if you said that no, this is not a good paragraph, you would be absolutely right. Because even though this sentence, the first sentence of this group of sentences has a clear idea, and the two sentences that follow it do support the idea that my teacher is scary, the remaining sentences do not show how or why my teacher is scary, making this not a paragraph that could be counted as a band 7 paragraph. So in order to have in order to have a clear a paragraph that's worthy of a band 7 or above, we must have a clear topic sentence, and all the sentences must support the topic sentence. We may not include information that does not support the topic sentence. So additional information that does not support the topic sentence of that paragraph should not be included. Okay? There should be enough information, so examples of how or why our topic sentence is true, a logical organization of our ideas is very important, but also the transitional words that guide the reader from one idea to the next is also very important. So sometimes we see these in the band descriptors as cohesive devices or transitional signals or simply transitions or connectives or connecting devices. But basically we can think about transitional signals or cohesive devices as divided into conjunctions, also known by the acronym fanboys, which stands for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. So we effectively want to use conjunctions. We also want to use subordinations or subordinates or subordinate conjunctions. Words like while, when, because, if, even though, whereas. These are subordinations which create complex sentences, which we'll talk a little bit later. And of course, transitions proper. And transitions are words which begin new sentences, and they're really useful especially when beginning new paragraphs. Transitions like, for example, in addition, in conclusion, on the one hand, on the other hand. So we need to be careful because these transitional signals will help us in terms of cohesion and coherence to connect sentences together. And so it's very important to connect these sentences together, but not just to use them randomly, because one thing we need to be careful with is proper punctuation. So even if we use these transitional signals but use improper punctuation, we will end up making mistakes. So basic punctuation is so important for IELTS Writing Task 2 and Writing Task 1 as well. Punctuation is a very important aspect for IELTS as well. And again, conjunctions, subordinations, and transitions are all connective devices that may do the exact same thing. For example, but, although, and however are all connective devices that do the same thing. They have the same meaning. However, because but is a conjunction, we must also be careful with the punctuation of but. So when we join two sentences together, such as Mary is tall, Jack is short, so we're joining two sentences together with a conjunction, and, or, but, so any fanboy, we have to put a comma between those two sentences. However, if we use conjunctions in the same sentence, such as Mary is tall but slow, And we can see slow is a predicate that connects with Mary. We do not put any punctuation, right? So we put punctuation, comma, we put a comma between conjunctions when we join two sentences, but if we put conjunction in one sentence, we do not put a comma. Similarly with subordinations like because and although, if we start a sentence with a subordination like although, even though, whereas, or because, we have to put a comma between the dependent and dependent clause, or we have to put a comma between those two sentences. However, if we use although and because in the middle, we do not put any commas, right? Similarly with transitions, they have their own rule as well, and in most cases we simply start a transition with a capital letter and then we put a comma after the complete transition. So for example, comma, on the one hand, comma, as in case in point, comma, with starting that sentence, starting that transition with a capital letter. We may also use semicolons when using transitions inside of the body sentences, but in more majority of cases, we would use transitions to begin new paragraphs rather than to use transitions inside of the sentence. Although, so we would only use a semicolon if we have a transition inside the body of the paragraph, not if we're starting. So we talked about the use of proper punctuation as well. It's very important. And again, in order to understand punctuation, it's very important to understand the difference in functions of these cohesive devices of transitions, conjunctions, and subordinations, which bring us to our last point, using complex sentences. And using complex sentences correctly is so important for grammar range and accuracy. So we know that in order to satisfy at least a band 7, we need to use a variety of complex sentences. And the easiest way to use complex sentences is to create subordinations. Now, basically, complex sentences have a dependent and independent clause. So they're actually two phrases or two clauses together joined by some sort of subordinate or by a dependent and independent relationship. So, for example, this sentence, I am hungry, right? This is a complete sentence. Right? This is a complete sentence. However, if I start to add a subordination to this sentence, because I'm hungry, this would not be a complete sentence. And again, one thing to keep in common is that the band descriptors for grammar range and accuracy are the same for writing task 1, same for writing task 2, but also the same for speaking. So complex sentences have an essential role in speaking. So if candidates make a lot of these sentences such as, because I'm hungry, because I know, and those will not be complete sentences according to IELTS and would not score well as a complete complex sentence. So a complex sentence has both a dependent and independent clause. Because I am hungry, I will eat. And having complete complex sentences within your IELTS writing, task 1 and task 2, is the best way to increase your grammar score from 6 to 7 and eventually even to 8 with greater and greater accuracy and variety of subordination. Just as a reminder, if we start a sentence with a subordination, because I'm hungry, it doesn't matter which subordination we use, we always put a comma between the dependent and dependent clause. And if we put subordinations in the middle, we do not put a comma because our subordination is in the middle of a sentence. So again, every time punctuation is wrong in a complex sentence, the sentence is wrong. So again, for us to get at least a band 7 in grammar range and accuracy, we have to have a good control of both grammar and punctuation. And we can still make a few mistakes in a band 7, but we have to make fewer and fewer mistakes and more varieties, produce more variety of sentence structure for a minimum of band 8. And the best key to do that is to learn how to use and properly punctuate common subordinations. Words like although, even though, until, when, and while, and if. These subordinations also create varieties of sentence structure. And as we noticed before with our example from section 2 of module 3, subordinations help to join sentences together and to add functional complexity to your writing. And it does not mean that you have to pack in or jam as many subordinations as you can. One or two subordinations used properly within a paragraph is more than sufficient for IELTS to get a perfect score. So these were the essential keys to success for Band 7. Remember, answer every part of the question, present a balanced approach. Whether asked for advantages or disadvantages, cause and effect, always present both in equal amounts. Avoid generalizations whenever possible. Use paragraphs, not only in the sense of dividing the answer into 2 sections or 3 sections, but also making sure that each body paragraph has a central idea and all supporting sentences show how or why that central idea is true. Be careful with the use of punctuation, especially relating to the variety of cohesive devices, such as conjunctions, transitions, and subordinations. And don't forget to use plenty of complex sentences to ensure a good grammar score. Even if you make many mistakes, but use a variety of complex sentences, you are certain to get a score of Band 7 and above. However, if you don't make any mistakes but use only simple sentences, you may happen to get a much lower score, including a Band 4 or 5 if no complex sentences are given. So, thank you very much for attending Summerhill Online Academy's IELTS preparation course. If you need more questions or you would like to attend some private classes, gain feedback on your current writing scripts or speaking performance, or needing to take your IELTS score further, check us out at summerhillonlineacademy.com and we'd be happy to get in touch with you and answer any of your questions. Thank you very much from Summerhill Online Academy.